All right, great. Thank you. Welcome to the July 15th, 2015 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. We'll ask our acting assistant town administrator, Diane Morris, to please read the agenda.
Good evening. We'll start the evening off with a public comment at 6:05, and then at 6:15 there'll be a consideration of financial matters regarding end of year, new fiscal year, and health insurance. Irene Larrabee, our finance director, town accountant, will ask you to consider reserve fund transfer, consider end of year budget transfers, and then she will talk to you regarding the sunsetting of existing employees' health insurance advisory committee, the establishment of an insurance advisory committee, and the third, to open up the insurance advisory committee retiree appointment application process. At 6:30, Gina will be here regarding the acceptance of a Green Communities grant. At 6:45, we have Heather Peck, our town treasurer, regarding the consideration of a resolution involving the placement of OPEB funds. At 7, we have a consideration of appointments, a request from Carol Marple regarding the appointment of election workers. Under routine business, under the Selectmen reports, we have a draft letter that was written by Selectman Yuan and Selectman Brandon for the Selectmen to review. We will set the next meeting date, hopefully for July 30th. We will then review the annual dates for the 2016 annual town meeting, and there will be consideration of approval of various sets of minutes, and then consideration of the signing of a warrant of the TA payroll, and then we will adjourn to executive session.
Great, thank you very much. We have a
You're
motion
welcome.
to approve the agenda. So moved. Any amendments to that? Okay, we had a second. All in favor? Aye. Agenda is approved. Public comment, and we've got Pat Cassell first, and then our town clerk, Carol Marple.
I will be real quick. Turn it on. I just have a couple of questions. The town has been buzzing. The July 4th parade had no water float, and everyone would love to know why. That's something that, I'm just hoping somebody can tell the town why there was no water float at the parade, because everybody keeps asking me and I have no clue. And the second question is, there's a lot of defoliated trees going on in Sherborn, and I'm wondering, are we treating them? What is it? It's kind of going downhill. So I'd like to kind of put it out and say, do we have anybody who's knowledgeable about what we have in the town that's defoliating the trees?
Okay, thanks, Pat. I don't know if we have answers, and we don't typically answer on the spot. But if somebody knows about the water float, they can certainly comment. On the tree issue, I think we should ask the tree warden. Maybe Diane could follow up with the tree warden on that question.
Yeah, and basically, if there is something going on, it'd be nice for the town to know. And if there is anything that people in town can do to help. Is it gypsy moths? Is it, what's the problem? But everything is getting chewed to bits.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Now we've got Town Clerk Marple.
Yes. So I have one of these to read to you. And I have one of these so you can pass them on. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I'm not sure if I'll be in the room when you do election workers, so I thought I would do this now. I just wanted you to see that I've put together a new election worker application, which we will have in our rack outside the office, maybe to attract a few new election workers. And on the back, there's nothing right now, but it will have a very brief job description. And a check-off box that they've read the job description and are able to perform the duties. So I'm hoping to attract some new election workers. And the other thing is a pamphlet that I've been working on for a while, and we held it till the very end of June to make sure we had enough money to print it. And it's just a little guideline for people who move here or turn 18 and register to vote. Just telling, where we vote, what being registered to vote entitles you to, how to vote absentee, all of those little details. So I just thought I would share that with you all.
Thanks, Carol. I wanted to comment also, I have a daughter who turned 18 earlier in the year, and she got a letter from you inviting her to register, which she did. I think that's just such a great way to get the people the kids who turn 18 actually realize that they're entitled to vote, and to make it easy for them, and that's a great thing, and hopefully you get a good turnout from that.
Thank you. We have better than an 85% registration rate of our 18-year-olds. So I would pit that against any other municipality in the state.
Yeah, or against any other success rate with 18-year-olds on anything. So thank you, Carol.
Can I just add that someone came up to me and wanted to be an election worker, and I told them to go talk to you.
Good.
So there are people out there who do want to be election workers.
We gather a few every year, but we also lose a few. So and I'm very proud of our election workers. They're well trained and do a very good job, but we're always looking for more.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, next we've got Irene Larrabee, our finance director, town accountant, to consider reserve fund transfers and end-of-year budget transfers, and let us know what we're supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Definitely. In accordance with Master Law, Chapter 40, Section 6, the town can do a reserve fund transfer for unforeseen and unexpected expenditures, subject to vote by the Board of Selectmen, and the advisory committee requires both parties to approve the transfer. In cleaning up prior year, end-of-year transfers, similar to the one that we did for Farm Pond in March, we did investigate elder housing, and it turned out that for the prior 4 fiscal years, monies were transferred out of their receipts in excess of what their general fund expenditures were. So what we're asking for is for the difference, the amount that's due back to elder housing, to be transferred back into their receipt account for future appropriation. And I'll answer any questions on that.
The approval that's required, is it by both the advisory committee and the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, it is.
So that's the reading the statute, that's what it looks like.
Are they meeting right now?
No, they're meeting at 7 o'clock tonight.
If they are, there's missing the meeting.
Yeah, no, 7:50.
So I would move in accordance with general laws, Chapter 40, Section 6, that the Board of Selectmen hereby approve the reserve fund transfers as presented.
A second on that?
Second, I'll add one quick question.
Let's have some discussions. Yeah, sure,
I
sure.
thought it was over.
Has advisory committee approved the transfers?
This transfer has not been approved yet. This is when we were with them back in March, they approved a higher amount. Then we went back and explored debt service in more detail, and the amount came back much lower. So it came back to $7,094.81. So their prior vote was never voted by the board, so it's null and void. So this amount is the one that we're asking for. This one has been cross-checked for the past month between Kitty, Joe, and myself.
Is there an explanation for how this happened? Mechanically what happened, and how we prevent that from happening going forward?
Sure. What occurs is at town meeting, it's different now, but in prior town meetings you would vote an amount as an offset receipt to be transferred from elder housing, farm pond, cemetery, and there's a fourth one, ambulance, I believe. Those monies get transferred into the general fund. The amount that's supposed to be transferred, that's authorized at the annual town meeting, is a limit. It's an up to amount, not to exceed. What occurred in the past is, in July, the entire amount was swept to the general fund. Instead, I evaluate it on a quarterly basis, and on a quarterly basis I transfer what their expenditures were for that quarter from their receipts to cover that quarter of expenditures. So that there isn't a full sweeping of the entire authorization. We're only transferring dollar for dollar what they should be reimbursing the general fund for.
So these were approved expenditures, because I remember we voted on warrants with elder housing maintenance dollars in there, and those were all appropriated money and money that they actually funded. And so that's this money, that's the same money, it's just that too much was transferred over.
Exactly. Exactly. So what had happened is it showed up as a surplus in revenue in the general fund and was certified as free cash at the end.
It should have been a surplus to their reserve fund.
Exactly. It should have stayed in their reserve fund.
So were there offsetting positives in ambulance, farm pond,
Farm Pond, there was actually monies transferred in excess, and we took care of those in March. Ambulance was pretty much dollar for dollar, we were okay. And cemetery transfers $20,000, and their expenditures far exceed $20,000.
and this road improvement plan estimate isn't stuff like that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I reused the same template. Restrike.
Okay. Any more questions? Do we have a vote? All in favor of this? Oh, you have a question, Paul?
No, I was just going to restate my motion. So I thought the discussion had ended before.
Oh,
That's why I didn't mean to come back.
That's okay. Well, we can take a motion second and then have discussion. I have to check the book. Okay, so I think the motion was to approve, right? Okay, so when we have a second, all in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. And you have a second item for us, right, Irene?
Yes, and just to wrap up the reserve fund, I just need your signature so I can take that on to the advisory committee. There's a form in front of you. And from the reserve fund, we're turning back $125,000 to free cash that we did not expend this year. For the 2015 year-end budget transfers, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, the town is allowed to perform year-end transfers for any unforeseen deficits at year-end between May 1st and July 15th. We performed our first round in mid-May, and this is the last day that we can do anything to impact the prior fiscal year. As of 5 o'clock today, officially the books closed on 15, and we're in 16 now.
That's why we're meeting today.
Exactly. Just to make sure that we have everything covered in the general fund, any unforeseen items that we needed funding for at the end. So in the chart that was provided in your packet, there is on the left-hand side, it's from. Those are the categories that we're taking the monies from that had an excess or surplus available to transfer. And on the right is where we're transferring the funds to. So in the fund sources, for treasurer's salaries, you're allowed to transfer up to 3% of the original voted budget by law, or $5,000, whichever is greater, so long as they had that surplus up to $5,000 available to transfer. In the case of the treasurer and conservation, both had the availability to transfer up to the $5,000. For the fire department, we were able to transfer the full 3%, $13,700. Town clerk's salaries, we were able to transfer $4,800 in turnback. Elections and registration salaries, $3,100. CMD salaries, $8,200, and general insurance expense, $4,025. The categories that need the additional funding are selectmen's salaries, $826. My understanding is the administrative assistant did spend some extra hours while Mr. Williams was serving as the town administrator as well as the treasurer. Advisory committee salaries, $40. That was the balance for the minutes for the special town meeting. I had made an error in the May transfers. I had transferred the $400 we requested in May to operating expense instead of salaries. Otherwise, this item would not have been before you tonight. Legal expense, we received our final June 30th bill. We're requesting a transfer of $1,435. Elections and registration expense, $858 was the amount we needed to cover the additional expenses for the special town meeting this year. CMD snow and ice expense, the parts finally came in for the street sweeper, so that's the amount of $5,971. CMD expense is $19,529. A majority of that is for contractual services due to trees. During the heavy winter and heavy snow, we had an excess amount of trees that had gone down that needed to be addressed and could not be addressed until April or May after the snow melted. So that threw that budget off. The last three items are all legacy, well, I'm sorry, two of the three last items are legacy items. The transfer to trust and agency police off-duty details. What the DOR requires is if there's a deficit in any fund throughout the entire town accounting system in our financial statements, anywhere, we are required to cover that deficit through the tax recap process. If it's discovered after the tax rate's set and it's discovered by the auditors, you raise it your next fiscal year. Off-duty detail, when I was tying up our numbers this year, has a deficit of $6,760. And this is not something new that occurred this fiscal year. I was able to track the deficits all the way back to 1993. So in 1993, the deficit amount was $18,537.68. So this is something that's gone on 13 years. Actually, 10 years? I don't know. Can't do my math tonight. And I'm just requesting that we address it, finally get the account back to zero, and move forward.
Just off-duty details?
It's just off-duty details.
Where's the money go? We get paid for off-duty details.
Correct. With the deficit not being addressed back in '93, and it could have been even before then, where perhaps we weren't charging the proper rate, or people did not pay their bill, so therefore it fell into bad debts. If it's a bad debt and we can't collect, it becomes a deficit as well. So you also have to make sure that you cover that through any means necessary, and for us it's through transfers. Could have been a reserve fund transfer, but we had the budgetary amounts available to do a budget transfer.
So is this a timing issue, or what is this?
No, this is not a timing issue. I'm able to tie every single open account that we have, and they're pretty much current for this fiscal year with Lieutenant Bento. So these are legacy. Like I said, they go back many, many, many years.
So did we have overages in other years?
No, we actually had some years that was even worse. 2004 was off 20,000, 2001 was off 30,000.
Or was that we would overpay us for off-duty details?
Yeah. You think the collection rate would be pretty high?
So I'm missing the connection to 1993.
Basically, the deficit wasn't funded in
We've just done this every year.
1993, and it kept rolling forward.
So some years it's higher, some years it's lower.
Exactly. So this transfer gets the account back to zero at the end of this fiscal year, and that way Lieutenant Bento and I can keep track of it every quarter going forward to make sure that we're not in a collection issue and heading towards deficit at year end. The next items, I'm sorry, more questions? State assessment and charges. Typically, with your cherry sheets, the estimated revenues and the estimated expense match exactly what you're charged for that fiscal year. But we did see an uptick in two different areas, and that was state mosquito control and metro area planning. They actually increased mosquito control from $3,307 to $3,446 in FY15, as well as increased metro area planning from $114 to $196.
But
So,
that question why it says in October of 2015, because that's fiscal 16. So why are we making a transfer in fiscal 15 from
I
fiscal
apologize.
16?
That was 2014.
That's a 14.
I'm working on 3 years at once. So it's a typo.
Oh, it's a typo.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What I probably was going to type and did not was that I plan to reevaluate our charges this year when we get our assessments to make sure they're in line with what the estimate was so that we can address it earlier rather than waiting until year end.
And the mosquito is also monthly.
Right, the cherry sheet revenue comes in monthly now, as well as the assessments are charged to the town on a monthly basis. It used to be quarterly. The last item is a transfer from the general fund to capital project fund expense. This is something that was identified in the 2014 audit. There was a capital article that has funding in both the general fund capital and the capital subject to borrowing fund 400. The auditors indicated that we need to make sure that we have the total appropriation for this capital article in one place. So this, in a sense, transfers that $6,000 that should have been transferred in a prior year from the general fund to the capital project fund, and then we're clean for our 15 audit.
What's the capital project?
I'm sorry.
Which
I
capital?
What
thought
project is
put
it?
I believe that's the communications equipment for the police department.
Karen, just one little nit. In your transfer on the police detail, it's 6,760. In the text, it's 6,751. But do you know which one is the?
The actual is 6751. I just rounded up.
So you rounded up the.
Yes, we can do 6751 if you like. It all depends on what the board would prefer.
We have lots of other ones in there. I'm just wondering why it's not in the deck numbers.
We can adjust it to the 6751. I'm comfortable with that.
So then you'd adjust on the other side as well? So the numbers come out the same?
Yes, we can just reduce the amount being transferred from general insurance.
There's nothing wrong with having an extra $9 on the police detail.
Is that what we end up with?
Yeah.
So it's just a positive number?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay then.
And then when Verizon doesn't pay a couple bills, it'll be $9 less, 6,000 next year.
That's fine, then, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I just like numbers to add up.
Well, right now, the transfers out of budgets is 43,825, and the transfers into budgets is 43,825, so the balance is nicely. The rounding up is what accountants do, unfortunately. I wish on my tax returns they round down, but they don't. So I move approval of the transfers as presented.
Any more questions?
Yeah, did we do a legal transfer in May?
Yes, we did. We did, I believe, a reserve fund transfer to make sure that we could pay the bills for the annual town meeting in the amount of $25,000. So this is an item that I have marked for FY17 to reevaluate, but we're pretty much too low in our estimates for appropriation at town meeting for legal expenses.
All right, all in favor? Do we have to sign something here? Okay, good. Just the sign one. Okay, thank you. Next. Oh, it's still you, Irene, right? The Insurance Advisory Committee.
The first request is to sunset our existing health insurance advisory committee. The way it's currently established is the majority of the group is employees within town hall that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement that have been appointed by the Board of Selectmen in prior years, is my understanding. That dates back to 2003. With an insurance advisory committee as part of our health insurance review as we're going forward, we need to make sure our insurance advisory committee is set in accordance with the law. Within the law, there's language that indicates that there's 8 members on the insurance advisory committee, 7 of which are appointed by the collective bargaining units themselves. It's not where the town appoints those individuals. It's up to those specific units to identify who's going to be part of this committee. One retiree that has served for the town or Pine Hill School, since Pine Hill School is covered within the town of Sherborn, is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. They must have worked for the town or Pine Hill School and retired from one or the other or both, some transfer jobs. So we'd like to...
And a union member?
Doesn't necessarily have to be a union member. Just needs to be a retiree that did service for the town or school. It just can't be the regional school or Dover school. So what we're requesting is to have the board sunset the existing health insurance advisory committee that's still active as of today. Establish the new insurance advisory committee by accepting the Mass General Law. and then open the application process for the retiree that the board hopefully will be able to present or appoint in August.
Just as a matter of history, I think there was, the reason why we didn't comply with the statute wasn't because we didn't know about it. It's because there was no representative of our employees who are not union. And we have some unions, but we also have many fine town employees who are not union members. And so when we looked at this list, it would be just all union members, plus one retiree. It didn't, just didn't sit right. That's how we're different committee.
The Insurance Advisory Committee meetings are subject to open meeting law, so there will be posted meetings where town employees, the public, can attend those meetings. They are open session. If the town continues towards reviewing their health insurance and decides to make a change and adopts the statutes, we would need to take our Insurance Advisory Committee, show that it's in accordance with the law, and transition that to a public employee committee to bargain any changes to health insurance if, and I'm saying if, theoretically we go that route.
So this is the first step, just to line things up.
Yes.
So the first part of this is a vote to sunset the existing advisory committee,
Health Insurance Advisory Committee.
Employee Health Insurance Advisory Committee. So if anybody on the board has any questions, or anybody who's here for this item has any questions, comments? Do we have a motion on this?
So moved. Would you read it?
Second?
So we moved and seconded to sunset the Employee Health Insurance Advisory Committee as of the close of business today, Wednesday, July 15th, 2015. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. It's 5-0. All right, what's next item?
The next item is to establish the Insurance Advisory Committee in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 32B, Section 3.
Okay, so this is a new committee set up in accordance with the statute that will carry us forward. And the vote is that we establish it, and is there going to be a separate vote to authorize the application process? Yes, there is. Okay. All right, good. Any questions, comments, discussions? No.
This almost seems to be a reason for town hall employees to unionize, to have some representation on this committee. I realize it's what the statute says, but and I have to agree with Paul on this, it doesn't sit well.
One of the things I've seen done is you appoint the committee, but you have a non-voting, like an associate member.
Somebody with observer status.
Yeah, but who's got some official recognition from the board from the group of non-union town employees. So at least they're in the room. They know what's going on. They have a chance to participate.
If the board does choose, they can establish an ex officio, non-union, non-voting member that would attend the committee meetings.
Well, anybody can attend them anyway. This would have somebody who has a voice, presumably, of some sort. Is that the idea, Paul?
Well, it's just to recognize the fact that we have a lot of really good town employees, and unlike some of the communities that I represent, we're not wholly unionized. We have, other towns have some fairly extensive unionization, where that would be the norm. So looking at this from the point of view of the general court enacting this, that they're basically dealing with communities which are fairly completely unionized. And here comes a small little town, and we have much more of a mixed bag.
It doesn't actually say unions, it says organizations. Can the employees here not be in organizations?
Yeah,
Without being a union?
It's a definition somewhere.
I like the idea that with an 8-member board, maybe it makes sense to have 2 ex officios. Suddenly it's 10 people sitting at the table rather than 8, but I think it's a good idea.
Who would be the second?
I just also allow for somebody who might not be there, but both from the non-union town employees. But I think the concept's a good. I think it's an excellent point.
Fire personnel covered on this?
Yeah, the fire department is
Especially-
unionized, and the chief is a
No, but
contract.
their retirement goes into this fund, does it not?
The retirement does, so if
But they're
a
not
retired
represented.
fire department person that retired from service from the town or Pine Hill School puts in the application to be appointed by the board, they could have a voice on that committee.
But shy of that one, the other 7 will only represent the school, CM&D employees. Not fire, not town hall employees.
Correct. At the school, there is 5 different unions within Pine Hill School.
That's why we never created this committee. We
Right.
felt it wasn't fair to the rest of the employees.
Sean, what's your point? There's health insurance benefits that the
No, retirement benefits for the fire employees.
so retired fighters are on the insurance plan. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Correct? It goes into some fund.
And they do have the ability to fill out the application to be appointed by the board, be heard by the board, and be part of that selection process.
So what if we have the 8-member committee plus 2 as suggested by Selectman Young, and the 2, 1 comes from the fire. You hadn't suggested that yet, but that seemed to be the way you're going. And the other comes from the
Town hall.
town hall. Yeah, but I don't want to limit it to town hall. If there is somebody who's not working in town hall, but maybe a library or someplace else, yeah.
Library.
So, but just to follow up on Irene's point, is a retired firefighter eligible for the retiree position?
Yes,
Okay.
they can fill out the application and go through the review with the board.
So if we are favoring the firefighters because they have retirees for the plan, do we run into trouble with current teachers or current
These are non-voting.
other?
Everybody else is voting.
I understand, but what if the voting representative is a retired firefighter, not a retired teacher? Not a retired, town employee other than fire?
That's the way the statute's set up. I mean, the statute.
You're designating, my point is you're designating a spot for a particular organization. Nothing against the firefighters, they probably have more people in their organization than any other one, but you're designating a spot for a particular organization, which is also eligible to serve in the retiree position. Paul's original point was people who are not unionized and who are working at town hall are not eligible to serve in any capacity.
Well, they're eligible for this one seat, but I think particularly where it's an ex officio, non-voting position, I don't find that argument very compelling.
I think what Mike is saying is that why specifically designated town hall and police? Just say, go back to your original idea of 2,
That's
and let's see what happens. And if we've already covered the fire department through one of these other positions, then it give us an opportunity not to be locked in.
That was my point.
Yeah, and that certainly makes sense.
So that's where we're going.
So why don't we go to the Chuck Yon motion, which
Yes.
was to approve with 8 plus 2.
No, I'm just looking a few steps down the road. If we do decide, if the Insurance Advisory Committee, the newly established one, to go through a health insurance plan design, and we go to the Public Employee Committee, those members, non-voting ex officio, in accordance with the statute, would not be part of the decision or negotiation group. So I just want everybody to know that up front.
So that's not an argument for not having them, it's just pointing out that they can't
Right.
participate if we get to that stage.
Right, because it's considered negotiations with collective bargaining units.
So there are 5 unions at Pine Hill,
Yes.
and we have police, C and D, so that's all 7 slots over there.
And if you,
Surely, the legislature had us in mind when they set up at 7, so that's what happened.
in towns that have more or less units, they still vote 7 people. So if there was only 2 units in the town, they still have 7 seats. Between the 2 units, they designate who sits in those 7
If they have
seats.
15,
If they have 15, they need to figure out which unit is not sitting in the seat.
So Chuck's motion is to appoint this committee in accordance with Chapter 32B, Section 3, with 2 additional non-voting ex officio members appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? Was a second on that motion? All second?
I second it.
Yeah, okay. So all in favor of that motion? Okay, so we just formed the committee. Now we have a request, the next would be the request for the Board of Selectmen to open the appointment for the Insurance Advisory Committee retiree that retired from service, I would say, and the 2 ex officio members. So can we have a motion on that?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion of that? All in favor?
Oh, yeah, I got a question. So we can do that within the agenda?
We're opening the application process. Yeah, we voted.
Or the post or anything like that?
No, this will be posted. We're not appointing anybody tonight. This will be posted and advertised as openings that are available for this organization. Okay, all in favor? We had lots of discussion last year about how we handle appointments, and there's a pretty good process in place now, I think, where David has, he advertises it, he posts it, and we leave it open for, I believe it's a month, until we know whether there's interest in interest.
On that topic, I was on the website today, and the list of openings is pretty stale. It goes back to March or something. Can we get that updated?
Yeah, I noticed that a couple of weeks ago.
Who's our webmaster? We have a,
It's each individual department. So I control what's on the town accountant's site,
okay.
but I can work with Jeannie on this.
So you and Jean can figure that out, thank you. All right, great, and thanks, Erin. That was great. And now we have, sorry we're late, Gino, but we have some good news from our planner, Gino Carlucci.
Yes, we applied for the competitive round of Green Communities grants, and we were awarded $77,800 for 3 projects at Pine Hill School. And you want to know more about it?
Yeah, sure.
Well, the estimated, well, let's see, in the fact sheet I had submitted, I said that the grant will cover about 71% of the estimated cost, plus there's utility incentives on top of that. So the total project costs are over $100,000, and the town share will now be down to $23,000 or so. And then on top of that, the estimated savings in kilowatt hours and therms of gas will be about in the range of, depending on energy prices, but roughly $8,000 to $10,000 a year. So it's like it's a great thing to get, and then it keeps on giving.
And you pulled that application together with the superintendent, or by yourself, or?
The superintendent hired Conservation Services Group to do audits to identify the projects and estimate their cost and savings and such. And I plugged that into the application.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gina, this is really fantastic. Another
Yeah,
green
the
community.
superintendent's office was, well, of course, they had a lot to gain, but they were very cooperative and very helpful in the whole process.
When it's usual, you're underselling, because this makes the total green community grants up. We received, what, 215,000?
Yes.
520, that boy. Nice.
Yeah, the first 137,000 has been spent, and some of it is in this room with the lights and throughout the town. So that is also continuing to save us money.
Because we're down 15%. I personally want to thank you, and I want to thank the Sherborn Energy Committee, our green team, for continuing to look for ways to save energy costs. And the net effect is not just to be satisfied with 15%, but to see if we can even do better.
So the screen team's doing better than the Salt Lake screen team, is that?
Yes.
And I just would I would like to point out on that 15% that it probably understates it because our projects were not fully implemented in that final year. So I think we will be pretty much closer to the 20% in the next year.
That's great. Sean, you had some...
Yeah, I got a couple of comments. This came out, one, these three projects are part of a capital request that we did this year at town meeting, which all originate from, although under the superintendent, Frank Hess chairs the Pine Hill Capital Committee, and that's where these came from. So one, we should recognize Frank and that committee, which Keisha Lifton actually was the one that really pushed. We had worked for a long time on these projects, and then she pushed to see if we could engage CSG, the consultants, to help us, and then hand it off to Gino so we could apply for it. We were going to do them anyway. They were really good projects.
Have we already appropriated the funds for these projects?
Well, yes, so I don't know how that works, but yeah, we had to move forward with town meeting. It took this long, obviously, but they haven't been spent. The project's not done yet.
Yeah, so
but they were part of that capital bond. I don't know if that was a borrowing, though.
It is subject to borrowing. The language in the article is just school improvements at Pine Hill, so it could be used for any capital improvement at the school. So if these projects are being funded by something else, perhaps they can
I know Frank had a long list of capital projects.
escalate future year projects with the funding they have now, or reduce funding for future year projects.
That's right.
And just to show how understated some of the stuff is, and I argued back with some of the energy numbers. These are the oldest wings of Pine Hill where we're doing the soffits. They have to take the ceiling tiles out during the winter in the corridors to keep the pipes from freezing. That's how poorly efficient those wings are. So these are going to be, and it's pretty hard to capture that with real data when the consultants do their work, but they're going to be huge savings and comfort improvements.
Thank you, Sean, for your part in this too.
I
You
enjoy it.
deserve some recognition.
I think you have to recuse yourself from this vote, too.
Yeah, I probably should.
That might tip it over the other end. All right, so do we have any more comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So the money, and I'll be a wet blanket. So the money that is going to come from the grant is not freed up in what we appropriated, right?
Right, so we can,
Does town meeting get the opportunity to vote on how that's spent?
no, they already voted to use the money instead of to borrowing for Pine Hill School improvements. If the school decides we can reduce that authorization to borrow by the amount awarded by the grant, that would be a school committee vote, and then we take it to town meeting to rescind that authorization for the balance. Or you leave the capital article the way it is, borrow the funds, and perhaps they can do something slated for a 16 or 17 now with those funds.
Is the borrowing only approved by the school committee or by us as well?
The mechanism for the borrowing, if they choose to say, we want to use the grant funds, please reduce our authorization to borrow at town meeting, we put that in an article as approved by the Board of Selectmen. For the borrowing itself, the board approves that short-term note to be issued.
Because town meeting authorized the
for the school board.
Exactly, exactly. Or if the board chooses, they can let myself and the treasurer know to only borrow funds for the difference, the 199 or 199,000 versus the amount awarded by the grant.
I believe the motion said to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the board of selectmen.
Correct.
And if we don't approve the borrowing of
Well, that was my question.
a large amount, we'll only approve the borrowing of a smaller amount, but the larger amount can be borrowed.
Correct, and then we could rescind it at a town meeting.
Well,
We would just need,
I'm confused because I thought you just said that was up to the school committee and now it sounds from Paul like it's up to us.
it's a conversation between the two groups. If the board decides they want to only authorize short-term borrowing with the treasurer for the amount between the grant and what they were authorized, they would take a vote of the board, and we could do that in August if you like. Or, if you would like us to borrow the full amount, we can do that. But if there's any reduction in that borrowing, just myself as common courtesy, I would like to have the school committee notified that we're going to reduce that amount.
There should be a
I
collaborative.
think
Let me make a comment on
excuse me, I think the best outcome, because they've always got a long list come every
Yes.
year, is that we just have an agreement that it's going to be applied to next year's list.
Yes.
And that feeds into my comment. You'll remember several years ago, the selectmen asked the school committee not to do one big borrow, but push it out so we can try and average the hit. And those are all rolling projects, because the schedule of working at school isn't really all that conducive to sometimes the town meeting calendar. So oftentimes you think you're going to get a project done, you think you're going to fund it, and summer's coming up and you're not going to get it done. And that's why none of the dollar amounts in the requests at town meeting are specific for specific projects. It's a total, but it's to fund the improvements because of that. And of course, with any public project, it's an estimate, so it's going to anything. But they've done a really good job, from what I've seen in the past couple of years that I've been there, of pooling the back money for projects that came in slightly under budget, bringing it forward to total up the tallies. And we did that here because some of these projects were like 20 or 30,000 more than this year's rec, because we had, I think, come up with extra money from a window project 2 years ago. And they're constantly growing. You wouldn't want to short them because we got money. We should just be happy that we'll probably get another project out of it.
Right, but we've had other cases where projects have come in below and then the money's been spent on things that I'm not sure that we would necessarily, if we had a chance to talk
Right,
about.
and that's the benefit of having a committee that's their sole purpose is to handle that. That's a great committee that Frank heads up.
They have excellent capital planning through that committee, through the school committee. To Mark's point, I think it would make sense to proceed with some kind of an understanding that if the funding is not turned back, and Mark suggested that it does get applied to a project that's already on the list of.
Yeah, their list is going to be higher than 77,000.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that,
Right,
yeah.
and I don't think that's a hard thing to do.
Absolutely.
But I think just for transparency and so the public knows, as you or somebody said that it's not going to a new project that came out of thin air.
Right.
So they didn't do that. It makes sense to me what Mark said.
I just want to be sure we do it in collaboration. I was trying to answer the legal question.
Yeah.
Legally, we have to approve all borrowings, but by giving a legal answer, I don't want anybody to think that I'm actually advocating that we refuse to borrow the money. I'm just answering the legal thing.
Yeah, that question's not in front of us right now.
Right, so I believe in collaborating and working with the committee. I agree with the comments that Sean made.
So do we have a motion? I guess we do have a motion to accept the grant in the amount of $77,800 in order to fund 3 projects at Pine Hill School.
So moved.
Okay, we're second on that? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Pleasure.
How do I not?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, I don't know how it's a conflict. We're
Yes,
taking
I
money.
can vote.
We're accepting money. We're
Wanna be on record in favor, Sean, or? Okay, great.
I'll vote in favor.
Okay, great. There we go. Hey, Chino, great job, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can't even wear a green shirt.
Heather, I'm sorry we're running late, but we don't have a hearing, so you have a little more time, so thank you. And I don't know if you've been in since the election, but if not, welcome.
No, thank you, everybody. So far, so good.
Good.
All right, this is just a handout of the historical performance. Unfortunately, the gentleman who is going to join us here tonight and give a presentation on this has a very serious family health issue and cannot make it. So, and I do have more of these for everybody if they want.
And just so the record reflects, Selectman Durensis is abstaining, recusing himself from this discussion.
So this project goes way back to 2010. The initial vote that was taken at town meeting to adopt 32B was done in the annual town meeting in 2010, Section 20, Chapter 32B, Section 20 of the general law, to establish an other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. That was the original vote back in 2010. Subsequently, in 2020, this was all on the top of my head, and I got nervous coming up here for my first time. 2014, we had 2 articles at the annual town meeting to basically fund that. So we established it in 2010, and it was a beautiful thing, and then it sat. And then in 2014, there were 2 votes to actually fund it. One for $200,000 and out of the OPEB stabilization fund, and another one for $100,000 from the omnibus budget, for a total of $300,000. So we now have $300,000 sitting in a very low-earning other post-employee benefits liability trust fund, which is held at MMDT, Mass Municipal Depository Trust. And what I am hoping to do, and what I believe the treasurer before me was hoping to do, and also many towns, which I provided you a list of, have already done, is take this $300,000 and put it into a vehicle whose sole purpose is to manage these kind of funds. Middlesex County Retirement invests with the SRBTF, which is the State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund. And then there's many, many other local towns and communities, including Wellesley, that all have voted to put their funds at this location. I just want to say my request is basically that you are authorizing me as the custodian to take action at this point and to invest these funds. We also took that vote at the annual special town meeting back in October last year. So you are really just sort of affirming the vote that the taxpayers took back last October. And that is that Exhibit A2, where I am asking you to sort of give me the authorization to finally transfer these funds. The Prim Board next meeting is on August 6th, and they require a 2-week lead time for me to get all these documents to them, which is why we put this on the agenda for tonight. If you sign A2, then I will execute the investment agreement, and I will FedEx an entire package off to them for their approval and acceptance of the town of Sherborn into the State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund in the amount of $295,000. I hope that was good. It's a lot of information.
What's their management fee?
Okay, so here's where I am going to have to sort of defer a little bit. That's why Paul Tedisco was supposed to be here with me tonight to answer those types of questions. I don't have that information.
It's in here.
Yeah, I thought it was in here somewhere.
It's a little over half a percent.
55,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
yeah, 55 basis points, so.
In terms of a percentage point, not an actual dollar amount, I apologize, yes. And right now, we're only earning about 0.05 on these funds.
She's gonna have to leave some good, what advisors taking.
Yes.
Yeah,
Might if we take it home from Mary, I think she's got to run out of here in the meeting.
On this investment?
I think just on this
I
issue
just,
of
it's not
questionnaire.
even a comment, it's a question.
Yeah.
It's, so we also voted at the 2015 town meeting to transfer more money out of the stabilization fund and add another $100,000 in the omnibus budget. So I didn't hear that mentioned, I just am wondering.
It's not part of this yet. It doesn't mean that we can't move those additional funds. What the selectmen are authorizing me tonight is to, as custodian, to move funds in and out of this account. So right now, we're just signing an investment agreement for $295,000. We haven't actually moved the money out because we just hit July 1st. We haven't actually moved those funds yet, and they are not included in this.
Okay,
But they can be moved. Once we take this vote, I can move those at any time.
okay, so it covers everything going forward.
Pretty much, yes. It allows me to be the custodian for the purpose of transferring and withdrawing, and should we decide at a later date there's a different investment that we'd like to pursue, it allows me to pull the money and move it over to a
So
different investment.
those funds just get taken care of automatically? That's my question.
They'll be included in the total bucket of investments, yes. Now, whether or not, quite frankly, I'm not going to make the determination right now whether those additional funds are going to go into this fund. I have to consider that. We want to look at other investment vehicles to decide if we want to diversify. Because Middlesex County Retirement is already in this fund, do we actually want to start looking at other vehicles? I haven't gotten that far after 2 months. So what I am comfortable with is taking the first $295,000 and moving it.
And Heather, this is just sort of a basic question, I think, but can you just explain how the SRBTF relates to the PRIM or the Pension Reserves Investment Trust Fund? You've got all these acronyms, and I'm not positive who's got what.
Not with clarity and certainty.
That's what Paul was going to do.
Yeah, I'm afraid, you know. It's a board that works with the State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because you're asking us to authorize you to deliver the investment to the State Retiree Benefits Trust.
Correct.
Or to the Pension Reserves, in other words, you wire it to SRBT or to the Pension Reserves Investment Trust, or as may otherwise be directed by SRBT. And so I guess that was my question. SRBT is some kind of conduit to the other fund, is that right?
I think it's the other way around. I think PRIM is the conduit to the SRBTF.
Okay.
They're like the board that oversees the investments in the retirement fund.
Okay. And there's these are two different funds, Pension Reserves Investment Trust, and State Retiree Benefits Trust.
I know, the legal lingo is part of why this has been held up for as long as it has been. This is the document that their legal counsel, the SRBTF and Barbara San Andre have both seen and are comfortable with at this point.
Has Barbara's reviewed the investment agreement?
She has, and she will execute a legal opinion based on the signed investment agreement. I have one she did preliminarily, but what we realized is that she did it based on an investment agreement that David signed back in March, and it's no longer valid because some of the acronyms have changed, and obviously David is no longer the treasurer. So I have the investment agreement. As soon as you sign Exhibit A2, I will sign the investment agreement, send all that to Barbara, she will issue her final opinion letter, and then we'll go from there.
And so A2 is something that Barbara wrote? Or
No.
reviewed?
But she has seen it. That is a sort of a standard document that is on the PRIT website
Okay.
that I have been working with them directly to get the appropriate language for our community into.
Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly like any other state board. If you try to peel away the layers and you can, you know, I'd love to say that I...
Like the PowerPoint on page 2, the last bullet point discusses the relationship. It says that in August 2011, the State Retirement Board voted to assign full investment management of their assets to the 9-member Pension Reserves Investment Management Board.
Which manages the trust. So that's why if Heather is, if the town is authorized to join SRBTF, she may be asked to direct the funds to PRIT, or as may otherwise be directed by SRBT.
I know.
Can I request that we postpone this until fall?
It will postpone the ability for me to invest these funds for potentially another 2 to 4 months.
And there's nobody else at whichever one of these acronyms is.
Unfortunately, David's not on either. David might have
Yeah.
some of this too.
Because I think it's, didn't the Attorney General just looking at an investigation of some alternative investments? I don't know if it's work.
That's right, who is the investigation?
I think the Attorney General has an open investigation into a bunch of alternative investment types, and let's see if that timber and hedge funds and things like that are here.
What's the issue with delaying?
The issue, it's twofold from my perspective, and it's not over, you know, insurmountable, but you are not authorizing, a town meeting already authorized this investment last October. And you're not authorizing me where I can put these funds, you're authorizing me to be the custodian to put these funds somewhere. So I totally understand why you may want clarification, and Paul is not unwilling, nor is the Prim Board unwilling to come in and give presentation. But I don't think we have apples and apples here. I think what you're agreeing to tonight is authorizing me as custodian to do it. Town meeting already basically authorized that and this investment.
Yeah, and so
You're sort of just...
So I don't know.
Well, I agree with you, Heather, in terms of what we've got here in writing. The town meeting, it says October 2014, authorizing the treasurer to deliver and execute a custodian investment agreement with SRBTF, State Retiree Benefits Trust Fund. And so you are asking us to authorize and deliver the investment agreement in the form presented to this meeting and attached here too. I'm not sure we have the form that's attached.
You were given the investment agreement.
That's this investment agreement.
Right.
Okay. All right. And this is what we're actually being asked to approve.
No, you're not being asked to approve the investment agreement.
No, we're being asked to approve authorizing you
To sign the investment agreement as custodian, correct, for these funds, which I am as treasurer, custodian for these funds.
That's right. Yeah, this explains the issues that I was questioning too. It says the SRBT, according to General Laws, Chapter 32A, Section 24A, the SRBT Fund Board is required to invest the SRBT Fund with the Pension Reserve Investment Trust Fund, which is administered by the Pension Reserve Investment Management Board.
How come we didn't do this?
I pulled the original documents together last September, and we didn't. But the original documents, I started working with Paul Tedisco last September on this project.
We had a presentation at one point. Was that by him?
It was not. I don't
Or
believe.
somebody else? Might have been Middlesex.
It may have been Middlesex County Retirement.
That's what it was.
Yes.
So Barbara has approved the form of this agreement. The town has approved.
Barbara hasn't approved anything yet, but she's seen everything.
She's seen this.
She's gonna issue her opinion letter after these two documents are executed.
So you're not going to deliver them until you have her opinion,
Correct.
is that
I can't. It's a requirement for the, I mean, I have a copy of what she did, which was invalid, unfortunately. It was, needed to be changed because it referred to old agreement dates, and it actually referred to the SRBTF as HCST, and that's changed. So, like I said, these acronyms are constantly evolving.
So what do we think the current return is on the fund?
I went to a meeting.
That's somewhat irrelevant to this conversation, isn't it?
It is, but I don't.
I think the alternative, what Heather was saying, the alternative is we're getting some nominal return.
Well, 0.055%, right?
I call it.
Yeah.
But it's not our purview right now to come up with what we should be doing. So
I think town meeting's already decided.
Well, town meeting has given the treasurer authorization to decide. It's really, and I'm not trying to play God here, but it really is the treasurer's role to decide where to invest these funds.
I think it's a relevant question in terms of the impact of the delay, if the differences between,
That's the reason
I assume that's the
I think
reason
the
that's
town, it
question.
says here the town has voted to designate the State Retirement Benefit Trust Fund Board of Trustees to serve as custodian and to authorize the treasurer to execute and deliver a custodian investment agreement. The town's already decided that this is where the funds are to be invested.
9 months ago.
Yes.
Right.
To serve as custodian of the town's OPEB trust fund, that's pretty clear.
And it refers to the print board as well, specifically in Article 2 for that October 15th resolution. The one piece I'm concerned about is the third resolution in your exhibit, which is, it authorizes you to execute and deliver the investment agreement with the State Retiree Benefits Trust and to wire money to them or PRIM, or the trust, as directed by the SRBT. That's all fine.
Yeah.
It's the very end that I'm concerned about, and to make withdrawals and investments and enter into such agreements and deliver such certificates and other documents as SRBT or the PRIM board may direct. I'm worried about PRIM being able to direct us. I thought maybe I'm misreading the town's resolution. No, I'm sorry, I am misreading it. Article 2 of the October 15th article.
Yeah.
It says it can either be the State Retirement Benefits Trust Fund or the PRIM Management Board.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, that's...
And this
No, that's okay.
A2 came from them?
It's a standard. If you go to their website,
That's what I'm
they give
saying.
you a list
They
of
told
documents.
you got to sign this,
This
right?
is part of the checklist. I have to have this.
Right. The only things we got maybe still on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I copied and pasted off the website, and then my Word document didn't work correctly, so I retyped it, and I must have typed it wrong.
Typed it quick. Okay, I'm comfortable, I guess. I don't know if others are comfortable.
Do we want to make it subject to the town council's approval of the investment agreement? Want to make that an explicit part of the...
So I think Heather already said that that's what she has anyway, so I mean, you wouldn't object to that, right?
I just want to,
I know that the investment agreement anticipates that you have to have an opinion of town council. That's one of the schedules.
So if our vote is subject to delivering, including the opinion of town council. Is that what you're saying?
I'm actually more concerned about town council reviewing and approving the investment agreement itself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am certainly willing to share with you the letter that Barbara wrote that is, I'll just put a line through it, superseded, so you can see what it looks like. I apologize, I don't have enough copies for everyone because it's not valid anymore, so I didn't include it. we realized after the fact that she couldn't actually do her letter until after I executed the agreement, so that she's reviewed an executed agreement.
So her opinion is for the purpose of determining that this is a valid contract between Sherborn and the HCST, whatever that was.
She's basically saying that she's, yeah.
That's a different board, though, right? That's why in Healthcare
That's-
Security Trust.
Yes.
Board.
Yeah, that was
They
the
changed
preference
the
of
aspect.
the
Right,
99.
so she's saying that this is a valid contract. She's not opining on the merits of this agreement, but you're not giving any discretion on this agreement. This is what they tell you
This is what they
to
tell me
sign.
I
It's
have
like
to
if you
sign.
walk into Fidelity, you want to open an account, you sign there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All right. People ready to make a motion on this? Want to make a motion?
You need me to read the whole? I will.
Well, I guess the motion we would want is to approve
The resolution is in Exhibit A2.
in A2, yeah. So we have a motion to approve the resolutions of A2 from Sean. We have a second?
Second?
Okay. Motion second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Let's say aye. Any opposed?
Can I abstain?
Sure. Go ahead. One abstention, so it's 3-0 to 1. That's fair. Okay, good.
So I'll
Do you have
get,
everything you want
I'll
from
get
us now?
3 signatures on A2 tonight?
Yeah, you will. Do you want to correct the
I
spelling?
would, yes. You want me to just run and do that on the
Yeah, that'd be
computer and bring
great
it back?
if you can, yeah.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right, thanks.
And I can bring it right up to the table when I come back in? Or do you want to just give it to me in the morning? Whatever. I'll go do it, bring it to you, and then, okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Let me spell the 3 letters. Okay. Thanks, Heather. Sorry it took us a while to get there. But,
So next to Paul's name, put recusal, and next to Mark's, put abstained?
sure.
And then the other 3? Okay.
Yeah, and
We'll
just,
do.
yeah, good.
I'll be back.
Okay, hey, Carol, we're a little late, but better late than never, I guess. Is there anything you want to tell us, or is this just a
Not really,
kind of
this is
routine?
very straightforward.
Okay.
You guys do this every year between July 15th and August 15th.
Yep.
But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
No, I think the question that came up last year was about people from other towns, and I know you do have a few people from other towns. One of them's Tony, and I guess I don't know what the rationale is for the folks from the other towns, but maybe you don't have enough from Sherborn to...
Well, we're allowed to use any registered voters in the state,
Oh, I remember,
actually. But and normally, all of our election workers are Sherborn people, but I have people who work elections here and then they move. We have one gal who moved to Dover this year. So I don't want to lose her as an election worker, and she agrees to still work the polls here. So I'm not going to let go of her unless I absolutely have to.
Right.
Yeah, so the people from out of town are either former residents or their staff.
I have a general comment.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to ask was, is there a particular number of people that, I mean, I remember Paul said he had found somebody else who might be interested. Are you limited in numbers, or do you have?
No.
Okay.
I do not ask you to appoint anybody who asks to be an election worker. There's a process we go through.
That's what I'm wondering, yeah. So you've got your list of people, but if somebody else,
And I would put them on the list for next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because you gave us a form at the beginning, and you said you were inviting people to apply. So just to be clear, that's for the next round.
Exactly. The other thing is, I tend to, anybody that I find out between appointments, I will invite them to the next training session, so that should they be appointed the following July, they're all ready to roll. Because I do require election workers to come to training periods. We also have accepted the statute that allows me to appoint an emergency or emergency election workers. And it's happened where somebody calls me on election day and says, "Oh, I have the flu." Or in one case, my mom just went into the hospital, I can't be there. And so usually I can find somebody who's already on the list, but one time I had to take somebody who wasn't. And that's legal too.
I think I need to recuse myself from this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you and I vote that too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, or we can vote it separately, but if we've got enough people to vote, it doesn't matter. In other words, what we've done in the past is just carved out a separate vote for the person, and then you don't participate in the one.
Great.
But since there's two of them, the efficient thing to do would probably just be to vote for people. And Carol, just so we understand this, the statute talks about the selectmen shall appoint election officers, a warden, a deputy warden, a clerk, a deputy clerk, 2 inspectors, 2 deputy inspectors. You're not asking us to do that, right? You're asking us to just appoint election workers.
We went through this another year.
Yeah, that's right.
The Chief Counsel for the Elections Division in the Secretary of State's office says we are not actually required to appoint to those particular positions. And because I use 3 shifts of election workers, we will have, for every election, I will have a warden and 2 deputies, each one working a shift.
So you just kind of informally appoint them as a shift?
Yes, it's very, the statute requires that if we get election worker names from either town political committees or the state political committees, then I am bound to have as many from this party as I do from that party. And all my wardens and deputy wardens are one party, and all my clerks and deputy clerks must be the other party.
Okay.
Because we get no names from those groups, I'm not bound by that, but I try very, very hard to adhere to it anyway, because I think it's best practice.
Yep. In any case, this is just a vote to approve names. It's not more than that. You have a question, Paul? Or
Just a comment that I think it's a better practice to have election workers who are not political activists. And on this list are many people who are and have been for many years politically active in the community. I think you build more confidence on the part of voters if you have people who are not involved.
Well, that's a point to consider, Paul, but consider the obverse of that. If, in fact, we received names from town political committees or state political committees, they would all be political activists. That's built into the law. However, I have the authority to require anyone working any particular election to refrain from a whole list of political activities. They cannot, I ask them to choose between doing these things or being an election worker. And some of the things on that list, off the top of my head, are having a sign in your yard. They're forbidden by law from serving as a treasurer on anybody's committee. I ask them not to sign any public letters, send out notes, host a coffee or a gathering of any sort. So it's inevitable that many of the people on the election list will be active in politics, but I do require that they not be overtly active on any particular election in which they're going to work.
Well, just to respond to that, I don't believe, as a matter of law, the elections in Sherborn are nonpartisan. So I don't think the distinction between Republicans and Democrats matter except for state and federal elections. And as I look through this list, I don't believe any of these people have been nominated by either of the political parties because, well, I'll just leave it at that. So it's not like the political activists on this list have been presented by either political party.
I guess I'm missing your point then.
I think it's better, it's just a better practice to have people who are relatively not politically active. So when voters are checking in, that's just a better, higher confidence level. And I have to say that these are all good people. This isn't picking anybody in particular, but there is a pretty high percentage of people who are very active.
Could you define politically active for me? Because I think I'm missing your point.
Can I make a point while you think about how to respond to that? By definition, if you're going to volunteer your time to be part of the political process, you're politically active. You may have an opinion or lean one way or the other, but if you're suggesting that the politically active people be off the list, there's no list. There is no list.
I guess, yeah.
We're all politically active, we're sitting here.
I guess I'm wondering, it's a good philosophical discussion. Are you proposing something, Paul, or is this just more a dialogue with, I mean, it's fine to have a dialogue with Carol. I just want to know, since we've been on this item for a little while, are you proposing anything other than a motion to support this slate, to approve this slate of names? And if so, what?
I'm trying to encourage the town clerk to focus on people who have a more neutral presentation when it comes to counting votes and that nature, unless they are presented by a political party. That's all.
To Sean's point, it looks like about 60% of the people here are undeclared, which I know Massachusetts is different than other states, but I'm not sure what constitutes the definition of politically active. But it's interesting. I didn't run the numbers, but it looks like about 60% are undeclared.
Yeah, at least.
And that actually corresponds pretty much to the percentage of registered voters that we have undeclared.
All right, so do we have a motion on this, or? I'm not trying to cut you off, Paul. I think that's a valuable discussion, but okay.
I'll move the slate, if you'd like, with the exception of, do you want to pull the two out so they can vote?
Yeah, let's pull that.
So with the exception of Stacy Brandon
And Libby.
Elizabeth Young.
Okay. So we moved to approve the slate, subject with the exception of Stacy Brandon and Elizabeth Young. With a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor on that? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And now
Stacy Brandon.
move Stacy Brandon. I'll second that. Now all in favor of Stacy Brandon? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? You abstain. And then I'll move Libby Young.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of Libby Young? Okay. Great. All right. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is to discuss a draft letter to General Chemicals, really a draft letter to somebody. The DEP.
DEP and then General Chemicals Consultant, just putting together the report to DEP.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, the agenda was a little bit off on that, but the letter is in the packet, and hopefully folks have had a chance to review that.
Yes, and I commend both drafters for a truly excellent letter. And there's some lines in here that I just resonate. They're almost poetic. I particularly...
Chuck, you're 95% of the paper.
But 5%, the platter part is yours.
All the words out of my mouth.
She's incognito.
I really enjoyed reading this.
But the thing that resonated most with me was the idea that we want to be preventative rather than remedial. That the difference between taking steps in advance to prevent something versus trying to fix it afterwards And it said so beautifully, exactly the concept that I thought we want to convey. So I endorse this letter 100%.
I had a couple of comments. Well, just one question. You got a little line. I don't know if that's just some kind of a editing mark or something on the side.
It's just crappy type.
It's a verb. I don't know how you would get a verb for something crappy type. Okay, and I too like the letter a lot. I did have a couple of questions. One is we had discussed, and maybe I was the only one in favor of this, where we discussed having some kind of dialogue with the residents whose wells would be subject to sampling before we insisted as a Board of Selectmen that folks sample their wells. And I wanted to know if that had happened yet. And secondly, I had a suggestion, which is we've got a couple of factual statements in here. One in particular that I made a comment on, where it says, Selectman shares Mr. Demler's concerns, that's fine. And then it says there are several ways the contaminants may connect with the bedrock fissures from which all Sherborn wells draw water. Courtsbrook will receive surface contaminants, blah, blah, blah. All true, I'm sure. And I just feel like we're not the scientific experts. We should have a point in there that says something like, we understand that there are several ways the contaminants may connect with the bedrock fissures.
That's a great suggestion, because that's basically straight from Roger's letter, so
Yeah.
I think that's a
from
good qualifier,
Okay.
right?
All right. So those were my two. Those were my two comments. The other one is just the sampling. I also wanted you to check Dave Linsky's spelling. I'm not positive there's an E in there. Maybe there is.
On the first comment, I don't have a problem with pressing DEP to make available testing, and I think we can, consistent with that, consult with property owners before testing is done. In fact,
I thought Roger said that was required.
That's about to add that the government just can't walk onto somebody's property and do a test without essentially obtaining a warrant of some kind.
But we're the government, and we are urging DEP to walk onto people's property.
We're urging DEP, basically, put aside some money, offer this.
We say start annual testing, Paul, and we also say in here, we recommend additional sampling seasonally of the private wells. And all I'm suggesting is saying something along the lines of, with the consent of the property owner, after both
I
of
don't have a
those
problem
statements.
with putting that in there. But I think that's just a restatement of the law.
I agree with that, but it's more of a perception.
I'm fine.
Yeah, okay.
Fine. Don't have to.
We should be.
You don't have to convince me.
We should be testing, cattle grazing fields on all the farms.
You got yes for an answer.
Good. Okay. I'm not used to getting yes for an answer.
Sounds like you live in my house. So that would go in the second bullet at the bottom of page 2 of potential actual impacts to the private wells.
It would go these two places with the impacts, with the consent of property owners, both of those places. Yeah, the second bullet first. Okay, and those are the only comments I have.
Sorry, where did you put it?
I would do that.
Could you just put it sort of like we do it here and just say with the consent of the owners and then all three of them?
Gotcha, good,
Perfect.
perfect, yeah, excellent, Mark. I'll accept that correction. In other words, it applies to all three of those. And then the other time was down here.
Yeah.
And then that was we understand.
I get it.
Okay, great, good, thanks. This is a great letter.
So, how do we get this?
Do we want to copy anybody in Natick on this also, since Natick
There is
so
some
close?
copied in Natick.
Is there?
Well, there's Linsky, but
Do we want to copy the Natick Board of Health also?
that's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're involved, they should be.
Maybe Natick Board of Selectmen.
We also had input from a very good young law clerk at the EPA in Washington who reviewed the letter.
Oh, good.
So,
Really? Excellent.
So can I move?
Mr. Robert Haltman, town manager, is that town manager of Framingham?
I believe so. That came off the CC list from Carol's original letter,
It's got to be then.
but that's a great point.
Okay, great, good.
Can I gotta ask something, since reading this, then reading the other stuff that came from the N-Star site, are we allowed to talk about that? We are, right?
Sure. It was communication.
It's still, it's separate, but it connects in a way because the aqueduct goes right through both sites. So I don't, should we be intending to follow up? I mean, it may have nothing to do with General Chemical, but it certainly has to do with DEP. And DEP has gone on record saying they didn't finish the cleanup.
Right, they audited.
I mean, they're basically, they almost abut each other,
Right.
the two sites. I haven't seen it on a map, but the pipe goes right through and leads right to our town.
That's right.
So I guess we probably can't make mention of that in here, but or can we? I mean, we want DEP.
I don't know if you want to put it in this letter at this point.
Yeah, I think we
Right.
we run the risk of confusion and
Right.
dilution of our point.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty site-specific
Or
letter.
just do the whole
Right.
thing over
This is
again
to
on that one,
a cleanup site.
because they're different owners and...
Yeah, we can, I mean, we can ask.
Maybe it
Roger-
carries more
we can
weight
ask
to just
Roger
re-up
follow
it.
up with that. You know, Roger may have input on that, you know, in a month or so he comes in and.
I'm a little surprised that didn't ever come up in 2
Well,
hours.
Was that a pretty recent audit letter that?
Well, the letter was, but certainly Framingham's been involved in it. I mean, N-Star Gas hasn't owned that site in years, but they've been doing the cleanup there.
Right.
So
but
they
when-
certainly are
when
involved.
DEP audits, then they issue an audit response, and then if they find, like this one found that it
I
wasn't
think that was June.
sufficient, then
That was
they've
June
got,
12th, I think.
yeah, so then they've got a certain period of time to actually
Right.
get their act together and do it over, so. All right, great, so we need to
Do we
authorize,
physically sign this thing, or do we just send it out?
I was going to make a motion
Yeah,
to issue this letter as amended.
okay, and who's signing this letter?
You as the chair?
Overall,
Yeah.
We can all sign it, I'm happy to sign it, whatever you want.
I think it's more powerful if there's 5
That's what I think too.
signatures on it.
So we'd need it amended so we can all sign it.
Well, the motion was as amended.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so you'll type it up and leave it for us to sign, or Diane will, rather? Yeah. Good, with those changes. Thanks, Diane. And once we sign, you can send it out.
We should vote it. We should vote the motion.
Yep. Second? You have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Great, perfect.
Thanks, guys.
I see the book was covered up, Paul, that's what happened. All right. Carol did, our town clerk did. Okay, meeting calendar review, next meeting, July 30th, I think we talked about that earlier, July 30th is a Thursday. For this one date, at least this summer, we had to get back to the Thursday. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Was that
I
you?
think we already scheduled.
Yeah, we scheduled that one, perfect, okay, good.
Sorry.
Did we skip
Did we skip
town meeting?
No, that's
No,
next.
it's in the packet out of order.
Reviewing town meeting dates, and Diane, can you explain why are we doing this now?
Well, the finance director wants to start putting her timeline together, was asked that we zero in on picking a town meeting date.
But here's the problem. I, as you know, represent a number of cities and towns. 71% of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth meet in the first week of May. And I have other towns that are meeting in that first week of May. So I'm opposed to setting a Sherborn Town meeting for the first week in May because I'd like to attend the Sherborn Town meeting.
And we would like you to attend.
I haven't missed one in a long time. Don't want to miss one now. So the proposed dates don't work for me because I have conflicts.
Well, there's 4 dates.
It's also the same as Dover's town meeting.
Well,
Dover has already booked theirs.
They booked theirs for the 2nd and the 3rd. The 20th and the 30th is equivalent to what we did this year. right? It's the
Right,
last
it's
Tuesday and the
equivalent to
last
what we
Thursday
did.
of May,
Right.
of April.
Yes, 28th.
I'm good with that. I'm
Okay.
good with the week before, which also complies
Yeah,
with
the
the
week before becomes
School
a
vacation.
school vacation and Passover conflict.
I unfortunately have a town that goes Monday, Wednesday, for as long as it takes until they finish all the business at hand. And sometimes that's only 3 or 4 Mondays and Wednesdays, but sometimes it's like Congress.
There's also a note here that Passover doesn't end until April 30th, so the 28th and the 30th would be within that time frame. And I don't know whether that has any...
Typically, Passover runs during the week that we have town meeting.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not unusual that we...
It's not the first
Right.
day of Passover.
Right, it's not the first time we've done it, and as I understand the rules, it's not like you have to take the entire week off
Right.
and do no activity during the entire week, but other people with more knowledge speak in that.
Have we ever had complaints about it?
No, we've had complaints about hearings on particular holidays, but not that I'm aware of for town meeting, at least not in the past few years. So should we tentatively try to schedule it for April 28th with continuation on April 30th if needed?
I'm in favor.
Folks okay with those days?
Yeah.
If we're not worried about it, Passover, then why not the 25th, 26th?
The week before?
I don't even see the 28th on this list.
The 28th is on David's recommendation.
Oh, I'm looking at the email. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, Irene did a bunch of different days, but I think David kind of narrowed down what would work best, and I think he's right. The 28th and the 30th are really probably the best dates. It's consistent with how we've done it in the past.
But that doesn't match the list of what's available at the auditorium. So you're picking a date that's not available.
I'm sure
the Michael's gone.
David must have checked.
I've booked the 28th and the 30th.
Oh, you did?
I have,
Thank you.
yes. I booked it.
Oh.
So on the
I
ball.
wanted to hold
I
the
see.
slot for us.
Yep, good. Were you seeing that it's not available? I think it says it's available. It's not
I'm
available.
reading the wrong part of the book.
Gotcha.
I'm reading way down on that email.
Okay, all right.
Irene's initial.
So we're set
Sorry.
then.
The 28th and the 30th?
Well, is everybody okay with that? Okay, should we vote it?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye, great, good. Everybody put that on their calendar, we have to sit.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna sit, we have 5 chairs, we're gonna have to push some, maybe push town council off into the...
Let's get advisory off the podium. Oh, Mary's
Behind
not-
the curtain? We can sit behind the curtain, I'd love that. Let's see. What are we doing next? Next is, I think we have a motion to, we have consideration of minutes.
28th and 30th, April.
28th and 30th.
What'd she write? May 28th.
No, it's April.
What's that?
April 28th.
Okay, so we have minutes to approve now. I don't know if folks have comments,
Where did I just put
if
the-
they've gotten through all these.
I have given all my comments. There's one meeting that I did not attend, but given that there's only one member of the board presently sitting who was at that meeting, I will vote in favor of those minutes with the Mark Brandon caveat that we were voting to make it part of the record, but not necessarily attesting to the fullness and completeness thereof.
Okay.
But the rest of them I read and I'm okay with.
All right, so the folks want to move?
I hate to be a pain, but I found a few typos.
Okay, tell me where they are. Do you want to email it to me?
Yeah, why don't you email them to her and we can accept them with your corrections.
So can I make a motion? We
Please.
accept all the minutes for, as listed in the agenda, with all typos corrected as referenced, and as to those members who are voting thereon who were not present, they are voting solely to establish the public record and not attesting to the fullness and completeness thereof.
Second.
I like that caveat, because the other boards I've been on, we only voted on minutes where we were there. Maybe we were being...
I don't think there's any law that says that that's the only thing you can do, but it makes sense that you wouldn't want to.
It's the Mark Brandon idea, so I'm just following his idea, which I assume he's tested and validated it.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay, second the motion?
Okay, all in favor? Aye, great. Okay, so that just for the public's sake, we approved March 21st, April 15th, May 6th, May 20th, May 28th, and June 10th.
So I think we're almost caught up.
Yeah, actually, the 24th, I hope to do it until the next meeting.
The objective was to catch up, Diane. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. And that's very good. Yes, Carol?
Can I just ask sort of a rhetorical question, but how are we doing with reviewing executive session minutes and releasing those?
That's another thing we've got to get to. I'm not sure there's any that are in a position to be released yet, but we'll look into that.
None have been released for years and years
All right,
and
I'll just confine my comments to my time on board then.
Great, thank you.
All right, we have a warrant
You gotta hand it.
for
Move approval of the town
town
administrator's
administrator's
warrant.
salary.
There's two warrants.
Move approval
The
of
last one and then the overlap for July.
the overlap for July. There's two of them.
So approval of both.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor? All right, I'll send one way and one the other way. Okay. Lots to cover. Okay. Next we have on the agenda an executive session, so I'm going to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen...
Excuse me,
Yeah.
can I just interrupt for one
Yes,
moment?
Commissioner, yes.
I was at another meeting and I missed the public comment, and if I may, because hopefully people are listening,
Yes.
tomorrow the Council on Aging is having their drop-in luncheon at 12 o'clock, but it's going to take place up at Pine Hill Cemetery.
Okay.
And we will be discussing the cemetery up there and showing people around.
Okay, Council on Aging is having their drop-in luncheon at Pine Hill Cemetery tomorrow for no reason other than to discuss improvements to the cemetery, is that?
No, to look at some of the interesting stones up
Oh,
there
your research.
and all the symbolism that's on them, and do a wonderful walk and spend some time outside.
So doing a walk, spend some time outside, look at research and history, and it'll be a great time.
And are you a
Susan,
member of the
contact
cemetery?
Susan Tyler for details. Mr. Taylor?
I got here late for public comment.
Oops,
And,
sorry.
But there's a reason why we have a sign-up sheet. I kind of
understand.
object to this process. We have a sign-up sheet.
We
And we're done, and we've got people waiting, we're paying for council and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's fine.
Give
That's
me
the will
3
of the board.
minutes.
The will of the board is not to, Elliot, so...
Sorry.
We have gypsy moths that are coming into Sherborn. The trees in front of Pilgrim Church are covered with
I'm
them.
going to make a suggestion. Talk to Pat Cassell. She asked the question, what's happening to the trees? You guys go out in the hall and discuss. They're gypsy moth eating our trees.
The way
Thank
to
you.
keep them is put duct tape, sticky side out, and they will not go up the trees. That's what I wanted to
Thank
say.
you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Elliot. It didn't even take 3 minutes. Perfect. I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, or value of real property as it pertains to the Peace Abbey land swap pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, 6 and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus Capital Asset Management, and to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation as it pertains to the town of Sherborn pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 3 and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus Division of Capital Asset Management. And further, I declare that the discussion of both items in an open meeting would be detrimental to the town's position. The board will not return to public session, and I need a second and a roll call vote. Who's going to second?
Could I ask that the vote be divided?
Okay. On the first item, the land swap, we've had a request to do this separately. So
Second.
on the motion for the land swap, it's been seconded by Mr. Yan. I'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Yan?
Aye.
Mr. Brandon?
Yes.
Mr. Colleen?
Yes.
And I'm yes. Mr. Janaway, yes. So that's 5-0. Okay, now with respect to the potential litigation for the town, we have a motion, a second to my motion.
Second?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Mr. Yan seconds, and we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis.
Votes no.
Okay, Mr. Yan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Colleen.
Yes.
And Mr. Jamo, yes. Okay, so we've got 4-1 on that one. Okay, and we're now adjourned. We're in executive session. We're not returning to open session.